As Malaysia entered the phase of recovery movement control order since June 2020, labour market performance improved slightly during the third quarter of 2020. This report gives an insight of short-term labour market statistics during the quarter, which will enable users to gauge a comprehensive view on Malaysia's labour market. It consists of three segments, which are labour supply, labour demand and labour productivity, with an additional special features which is an article highlighting the most recent issues in labour market through statistics. The number of employed persons increased by 1.4% to 15.10 million persons in third quarter 2020. Accordingly, the employment to population ratio increased to 65.2% from 64.6% as against previous quarter. However, in terms of year-on-year, the number of employed persons dropped by 0.4%, while employment to population ratio fell 1.4 percentage points. In the third quarter of 2020, employees made up the largest composition of employed persons, encompassing 76.4%, while the share of own account worker declined by 0.5 percentage points to 16.8% as compared to a year ago. In terms of number, unemployed persons lessened by 46,800 to 745,000 persons. Accordingly, the unemployment rate declined to 4.7% after recording the highest rate of 5.1% the previous quarter. 79.5% of unemployed persons were in the category of actively unemployed. Out of this number, 49.7% was unemployed for less than 3 months, while another 25.8% was unemployed for 3 to 6 months. Hence, the labour force increased 1.1% to 15.84 million persons. The labour force participation rate in this quarter dropped 0.5 percentage points to 68.4%. In terms of labour demand, there were 8.471 million jobs recorded in the private sector in the third quarter of 2020. Meanwhile, the rate of filled jobs went down to 97.9% as the rate of vacancies increased to 2.1%. In the meantime, 179,000 vacancies, which indicated job opportunities, were recorded in the third quarter of 2020, while 21,000 jobs were created in the same period. Semi-skilled dominates the number of jobs, filled jobs, vacancies, and jobs created in the private sector with a share of more than half. Being the largest contributor to Malaysia's economy, jobs in services sector encompass of 51.7% of total jobs, or 4.4 million. This was followed by manufacturing with 2.3 million jobs. Labour productivity as measured by value added per employment improved with a smaller decline of 2.2% to record Ringgit Malaysia 23.2 thousand per person. In addition, labour productivity per hour worked grew marginally by 0.1% with value added per hour worked of Ringgit Malaysia 41 per hour. Furthermore, the total hours worked fell by 2.7% as against previous quarter to record 8.55 billion hours. With the most recent macroeconomic indicators showing signs of recovery, labour market has slowly picked up with a lower number of unemployment and increased in the number of employed persons. In the same vein, total hours worked increased while the share of those employed less than 30 hours per week reduced. Overall, both labour demand and supply improved in the third quarter of this year. Labour Market Review, third quarter of 2020 features an article entitled The Review of Hours Worked in Malaysia. This article discussed the scenario of employment and hours worked in Malaysia as well as evaluated the impact of COVID-19 containment measures to hours worked. Over time, it was observed that hours worked in Malaysia grew steadily as employment grew, with slight downward and upward trends during major festivals as well as school and public holidays. However, this year 2020 has been very different, with major restrictions of economic and social activities being imposed to contain COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia. This has resulted in the hours worked to drop significantly during the first 2 quarters of 2020. As business struggled to ensure continuity, there were also pressures to retain employees. In this regard, reduced operation hours can also be an option exercised by firms to avoid more job losses and subsequent decline in employment and rise in unemployment. This was reflected in a higher share of persons working less than 30 hours per week as against lower share of full employment. The measure, although may cost lower salaries and wages received by employees, was by far the better option to ensure job retention as a means to drive the economy forward. Interestingly, as the hours worked plunged, labor productivity measured as the ratio of value added per hour worked rose significantly. The sudden spike in output per hours worked signaled that people were working harder during the limited business hours to ensure that productions and targets are achieved. Additionally, to remain relevant and competitive in the tight labor market, skills and knowledge were increased. This view was validated by Lazier, Shaw and Stanton in 2013 in their study, which found that the decline in hours worked and output in the USA during the 2007 to 2008 recessions caused increased labor productivity as workers' efforts increased during the time.